There is something no one tells you, a silent detail, almost invisible, that completely separates two people. Two people who were born in the same place, who had the same opportunities, who started from almost nothing. But over time, one builds wealth, and the other simply survives. And no, it's not luck. It's not above average intelligence. It's not having connections. And definitely not being in the right place. The difference lies in something much deeper, and at the same time, a much simpler. It's in how each of them chooses to act when no one is watching. Because here's the truth. The world does not reward what you intend to do. The world rewards what you do, repeatedly. While many wait for the perfect moment, those who become wealthy start imperfectly anyway. While some overanalyze, others execute. And that seems small, but it's not. Because small decisions, when repeated every single day, turn into completely different destinies. Now pay attention to this. Most people live in a constant state of preparation. They say, I just need to learn a little more. I just need to feel more confident. I just need to wait for the right moment. But that moment never comes. And do you know why? Because the right moment is a comfortable illusion. It protects you from frustration, but it also keeps you stuck in the same life. Meanwhile, there's another person. They don't know everything. They don't feel ready. They're afraid to. But even so, they act. And that is exactly what starts to separate the paths. Because those who act learn faster. Those who learn faster improve faster. And those who improve faster begin to stand out. Not because they are better, but because they started earlier. Now let me show you something that completely changes how you see this. There is a brutal difference between two mindsets. The consumption mindset and the builder mindset. Those who live to consume, work to pay bills, seek comfort, and relieve stress. Those who live to build, work with intention, vision, and strategy. And here is the critical point. Both can earn the same amount of money, but their destinies will be completely different. Because one spends, and the other invests. One seeks immediate reward. The other builds long-term return. One avoids discomfort. The other uses discomfort as a tool. And this is where most people fail. Because building is uncomfortable. It requires discipline when you don't feel like it. It requires focus when everything distracts you. It requires consistency when results haven't shown up yet. And most people quit exactly at this point. Not because they can't win, but because they can't handle the process. Now think with me. How many times have you started something and stopped halfway? How many times have you had an idea, but never truly executed it? How many times have you known what you needed to do, but chose not to do it? That's the detail. It's not a lack of information. Today, you can learn almost anything. The problem is not knowing. The problem is not doing. And more than that, it's not continuing to do once it stops being exciting. Because in the beginning, everything feels amazing. You feel motivated, excited, confident. But then, boredom comes, doubt comes, the urge to quit appears. And it is exactly at that moment that the paths split. Those who survive stop. Those who become wealthy continue. Even when tired, even when insecure, even without immediate results. Because they understand something that few people understand. Results don't come from what you do once. They come from what you sustain long enough. Now let me tell you something directly. Discipline is not doing something when you feel motivated. Discipline is doing it when you don't feel like it, but you know you must. And that changes everything. Because it turns action into habit. And habit builds identity. And identity defines destiny. You don't become wealthy just by making money. You become wealthy when you become the type of person who creates value every single day. And that doesn't happen in one day. It happens in small, invisible decisions. In that moment when you could procrastinate, but choose to act. In that moment when you could quit, but choose to continue. In that moment when no one is watching, and you still do what needs to be done, that's where everything starts to change. Because success is not an event. It's a pattern. And the pattern you repeat today is exactly what will define where you'll be tomorrow. And maybe what's separating you from the life you want is not something big. Maybe it's just this detail, the daily choice between acting or delaying, between building or simply surviving. And the question that remains is, which of these choices are you making every single day? And this is where almost no one has the courage to look, because continuing isn't glamorous. Continuing is repetitive. It's silent. It's often lonely. There's no applause, no immediate recognition, no quick reward. And that's exactly why most people don't sustain it. People fall in love with the result, but reject the process. They want the achievement, but not the routine that leads to it. And that creates a dangerous cycle. You start excited, but stop when the emotion fades. Then you start something else, and stop again. And without realizing it, you fall into a life pattern where everything is a beginning, and nothing is built. Now understand this clearly. Wealth is not built through intensity. It is built through consistency. It's not about doing a lot in one day. It's about doing what's necessary every single day, even when it feels small, even when it feels slow, even when it feels like it's not working. Because there is something most people ignore. The compound effect. Small actions, repeated over time, create results that seem impossible to those on the outside. But for the person inside the process, it was just consistency. Now let me show you the mistake that destroys this process. People want to validate their effort too early. They think, if it hasn't worked yet, maybe it won't, and that's when they stop. But the problem is not the strategy. The problem is that they quit before the turning point. Because every real kind of growth has an invisible phase, a phase where it feels like nothing is happening. But it is. You are learning. You are improving. You are building a foundation. It's just not visible yet. And those who don't understand this quit right before the harvest. Now think about this. How many people have you seen saying, I tried and it didn't work? Most of them didn't try long enough. They tried for days, weeks, maybe a few months, but they didn't try until it worked. And that changes everything. Because those who become wealthy don't operate on emotional timelines. They operate on commitment. It's not, I'll do it until I see results. It's, I'll do it until it works. And that is completely different. Because it removes the focus from the reward and places it on the process. Now here comes an even deeper point. You don't abandon what is a priority. You abandon what you haven't truly decided on. As long as something is optional, you will treat it as optional. And everything that is optional eventually gets left behind. That's why so many people say they want to change their lives, but keep living the same way. It's not a lack of ability. It's a lack of real decision. Because when you truly decide, you stop negotiating with your own discipline. You act, regardless of your mood, regardless of the day, regardless of the fatigue. And this is where the real difference is born. Those who survive act when it's convenient. Those who become wealthy act when it's necessary, even when it's hard, even when no one sees, even when it takes time, because they understand something most people still don't. Success is not about what you do when you feel good. It's about what you do when you're tired, unmotivated, and full of doubt. That is the moment where you prove whether you are committed or just interested. And there is a huge difference between the two. Interested people act when it's easy. Committed people act until it works. Now I want you to be honest with yourself. No excuses. No softening. Have you been acting like someone who is committed or just interested? Because that answer perfectly explains where your life is right now. And more than that, it shows with precision where you are heading. If nothing changes, Nothing changes. But if you start acting differently, even just a little, every single day, the result of that is inevitable. At first, almost no one notices. Then, some people begin to see it. And then, there comes a moment when everyone asks, how did he get there? But they didn't see. The times you continued without feeling like it. The times you worked in silence. The times you chose to build while others were just consuming. And that's why it looks like luck. But it never was. It was decision. It was consistency. It was discipline applied on ordinary days. So remember this. The detail that separates those who become wealthy from those who merely survive is not visible. It happens in small choices, in repeated habits, in the moments when no one is watching. And from this moment on, you have two options. Continue living the same way and get the same results, or take control of your actions and truly begin to build the life you say you want. Because in the end, it's not about what you know. It's not about what you want. It's about what you do consistently. And that is what changes everything. And even after understanding all of this, there is still one last obstacle, the most dangerous of all: silent self-sabotage. It doesn't show up as an obvious mistake. It doesn't come with a warning. It doesn't seem like something big. It hides in small choices. Today I won't do it. I'll make up for it tomorrow. Just this once. And when you realize it, those small concessions have become a pattern. And the pattern becomes your result. Now let me show you something that can completely change the way you act. You don't fail all at once. You fail little by little. It's a small decision that seems irrelevant. Then another, and another. And when you look back, you don't understand how you got there. But you did, because you repeated what you shouldn't have for long enough. Now pay very close attention to this. Just as failure is built, success is too. The difference is that the process is invisible in the beginning. And that's why so few people continue. Because at the start, it doesn't feel like it's worth it. You act, and nothing changes. You try, and nothing happens. But what you don't see is that everything is being accumulated. Every action, every effort, every day you don't quit is building something, even if it's not visible yet. And there comes a moment, a specific point, when everything starts to show. But most people never get there, because they stop before. Now imagine this as a line. On one side is where you are today. On the other is the life you want. Between those 2 points, there is a path. And on that path, there is a breaking point. A moment when accumulated effort begins to generate real results. But that point is not at the beginning. It comes after a long time of doing without seeing returns. And that is exactly where almost everyone quits. Because it feels like it's not working. But it is. It just hasn't shown up yet. Those who understand this continue. Those who don't restart from zero over and over again. And that is the cycle that keeps people stuck for years. Now let me be direct with you. If you keep starting and stopping, you will never cross that line. Never. Because every time you stop, you go back. And every time you go back, you have to start again. And starting over is exhausting. It frustrates you. It drains you. And over time, you begin to believe that the problem is you. But it's not. The problem is the pattern. You don't need more motivation. You need continuity. Even without desire. Even without results. Even without recognition. Because that is what builds something real. Now here comes an important shift. Stop focusing on big changes. Big changes break quickly. Focus on small actions that you can sustain. Something simple, but daily. Because what transforms your life is not what you do when you feel inspired. It's what you do when you're on autopilot. If your autopilot is unproductive, your life will follow that pattern. But if you change your autopilot, you change everything. And it starts with a very practical decision. Stop negotiating with yourself. You don't need to argue with your mind. You don't need to wait for motivation. You just need to act. That's it. Because the more you think, the more you delay. And the more you delay, the harder it becomes to act. Action must come before certainty. Always. Now keep this with you. The life you want is already being built. Every single day. The question is, are you building or are you delaying? Because in the end, there is no neutrality. You either move forward or you stay the same. And staying the same is already falling behind. Time doesn't stop. Opportunities don't wait. And while you hesitate, someone with less talent, less resources, less preparation is moving ahead, not because they are better, but because they chose to continue. So maybe what you're missing is not more information, not more strategy, not more time. Maybe it's just this. Stop interrupting your own progress. Because every time you stop, you break the cycle. And building again always costs more. Now imagine what happens if you simply don't stop. If you continue, regardless of the day, regardless of your mood, regardless of the result. Over time, it becomes inevitable. It's no longer a question of if, it's a question of when. And that's the moment when everything that once felt slow suddenly accelerates, and everything that once felt difficult starts to flow. And people look and call it luck. But it was consistency. It was decision. It was continuing when it would have been easier to quit. And now, you already know what you need to do. The only thing left is to decide whether you will act differently or continue exactly as you are. And before we finish, let me tell you something that maybe no one has ever told you this clearly. You don't need to become a completely different person overnight. You just need to stop breaking the process every single day. Because the biggest mistake is not making mistakes. The biggest mistake is stopping. It's interrupting something that was working because of a bad day. It's abandoning a path because you didn't see quick results. It's changing direction every time things get hard, and that prevents any real progress from being built. Now think with me honestly. How many times have you been on the right path, but quit too early? How many times have you gotten close, but turned back? This pattern is expensive, more expensive than you realize, because it's not just the result you lose. You lose time, energy, confidence in yourself. And the more this happens, the harder it becomes to try again. Until one day, you start convincing yourself that it's not for you. But that's not true. It never was. You didn't fail because you're incapable. You failed because you stopped before the necessary time. And that changes everything. Because if the problem is stopping, the solution is simple. Keep going. Even if it's slow. Even if it's imperfect. Even if it's hard. Keep going. Now here is the final point, the most important of all. You don't need to win every day, but you must not quit. Some days you'll produce a lot. Some days you'll do the minimum. But the minimum still keeps you moving. And movement creates progress. Progress creates results. And results reinforce who you are becoming. Do you see it? Everything starts small. But if sustained, it becomes big. And this is exactly where the game truly changes. Because there comes a moment when you no longer depend on motivation. You no longer depend on inspiration. You've become someone who acts, regardless of that. And when you reach that level, no one can stop you. Because now, it's no longer effort. It's who you are. And people like that inevitably build something great. Not because they are special, but because they are consistent. And consistency, applied for long enough, is unstoppable. So take this as a decision. From now on, you will not start and stop anymore. You will not negotiate with your discipline. You will not depend on motivation. You will act every single day, even if it's small. but you will act. Because this simple detail, this repeated choice, is what separates those who build wealth from those who spend their entire lives just surviving. And from this point forward, when doubt comes, when fatigue hits, when you feel like quitting, remember this. It's not about today. It's about who you are becoming every single day. And if you keep going, for real, it's only a matter of time. Nothing else. Just time.